Elliotte Friedman tells all on the recent episode of 32 Thoughts in regards to the JT Miller situation, along with nuggets from others that look a little different in hindsight a few weeks later. And Rick Tocchet addresses the reason behind Erik Brännström's healthy scratches. We're going to be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest. First, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any updates surrounding the Canucks as we head to the end of this homestand. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Friedman tells all. So on the recent episode of 32 Thoughts, Elliotte Friedman kind of dropped a bit of a bombshell on the JT Miller situation and touching on why the reason he was gone, but going on to this one saying, I think he has to bend and the other guys have to bend. Everybody has to bend a little bit. It's like a podcast. You have your talents. I have my talents. We have to bend them together to make a podcast good. This is coming off of the heels of how JT Miller just is a natural, intense competitor where he's very intense. Players know that he is a born competitor and a born leader as well. They rally behind him, but when things aren't good with Miller, he makes it known whether he's not happy with a teammate's performance or his own performance, which he takes very hard on himself. You can hear him almost cursing on the ice from the press box, watching it where the broadcast is, echoing throughout the arena. So when he's mad, you know he's mad. So thankfully, things went very well for the Canucks last night, and everybody, including the Canucks, was wondering when Miller got back, what would it all look like as Friedman went on. We learned in the short term that this won't be a problem. If the Canucks got spanked by the Panthers and Miller was terrible, then I think we would have had a problem. We'll see where this goes over time, and we'll see how things develop over time. So yeah, it's very thankful that they were able to just smash the Florida Panthers last night in a 4-0 shutout. The first team to shut out the defending Stanley Cup champions this season, and they were led by Kevin Lankinen. So it was a great performance. It was great to see JT Miller back on the ice, get the first star of the game. Hearing those JT Miller chants going, it was awesome to have that back in Rogers Arena, and they were able to get the W, which made it even sweeter. And we're now going to see JT Miller hopefully hit another stride. But all these things were coming out, and if you remember a few months ago, Jeff Patterson brought out how there was a testy exchange between Miller and Pettersson at practice where there was a scuffle, it got a little heated, but they didn't have to have the coaches intervene. And at the time, I was saying how if this was Miller trying to motivate Petey, I was all for it. But it seems like Petey was the one who kind of benefited for it because in his absence, Petey has really been excelling and really starting to get back to the Petey that we know. But hopefully these guys did kind of hash up whatever they had going on between them, because you don't want those things on the team. You don't want toxicity. You don't want things boiling over. So for them to patch those things up as far as being two of the core 4 members of this team and 2 assistant captains at that, you want to make sure that that marriage is very happy and that they are making sure they are on the same page. The chemistry is good. There's no bad blood between them. And if that is the case, Friedman did allude to that too, saying how Pettersson was something where that might have been a problem with it with JT Miller, where he's very intense. If he's not getting the most out of guys, he's going to try and bring the most out of them. And Pettersson was a topic of discussion last season and early this season. And Tocchet and the GM and everyone else in the building was saying, hey, let these guys solve it however they want to solve it. We know Petey has it going, and Petey has gotten going. But it's not just Friedman saying this. Back a little bit ago on December 3rd, Biz Nasty was talking on Spit and Chicklets saying, he mentions how the Canucks have to do something if Miller comes back and the dynamic in the locker room doesn't work because it makes Petey uncomfortable and not the same player, especially when Miller has been absent and Petey has stepped up. So hopefully Petey can keep up this production with Miller back, but it's the same thing where maybe that was the thing where having them paired on the same line just wasn't the right move to have. And the Athletic was also talking about saying, I think it has been pretty noticeable that Petey has seemed a lot happier lately. Those guys have admitted they've had to work on their relationship. Both of them have come out and said that. I've been wondering more and more this season and lately if this is attainable over the next few years. We know Petey is going to be signed for the next few years. We got him for a long time, paying him $11.6 million. They always talk about it. They always throw out that number. He's going to be around for a while. And then we had another reporter as well saying, does it ever get to a point where these players can't coexist? I guess that's possible when you have players of that stature that don't mix, but I don't see that necessarily being an issue as we sit here today. We know these guys aren't best friends. Yeah, they have come out in media and talking about each other, and they have seemed very civil with each other where there hasn't been a lot of problems. But at the same time, we don't know what happens behind the scenes. We don't know if they're putting on a front or if they're just trying to just throw smoke and mirrors at us. So it's hard to tell where the truth and where the fiction is. And I know with Friedman, he's had a tendency in the past to have some pretty exuberant scoops or truths to reveal. But with this coming out from Friedman and all these reports over the past few weeks or in the past few months where things have happened on the practice ice, other reporters are talking about it or hearing rumblings within the Vancouver organization or within the league as far as what's happening in Vancouver. So with these things happening, it maybe doesn't seem too crazy with what Friedman is saying here, or if that was the reason that JT Miller was away. Not saying it is concretely, but it seems like it's pretty indicative based on what Friedman and others are saying. But what do you guys think down in the comments? Would love to hear what you guys have to say. But that's going to take us into our second topic of today, which is Tocchet speaks out on Brännström. So this has been a thing this season where we've had a lot of defensive guys rotating in, and Tocchet talked about that, where he's saying we're built in a way that we can rotate D. I'm not sure we have guys that are consistently going to play every day. I think it's okay to have a rotation. And yes, it has been okay to have a rotation. It has been all right for the Canucks this season working with that rotation, but it hasn't been what it should look like as compared to last season as well, with the pairings that we had and the production that we were having, specifically Carson Soucy and Tyler Myers. Soucy has really turned it on lately, scoring last night. That was awesome. But again, we need to get these guys going, and breaking them up did prove pretty useful when we've seen the production that they've put out when they have been paired on the same line. So maybe that was the golden thing with doing that. But what he's saying here, I don't think that we have guys that are going to consistently play every day. And then with one of those coming up is Erik Brännström, who has been a healthy scratch for a few games now, including last night. When addressing that, Tocchet said, I think his defensive stuff has slipped a little bit, but I think he's been really conscientious of it, and he's had a couple of good practices. He'll get back in. I just think that for me tonight, I like righty with lefty, and I think Mark Friedman can add a little bit of bite down low. Now, Tocchet coming out and saying, yeah, he might not be impressed with Brännström's play lately, but when you look at 5 versus 5 shots for percentage this season, Erik Brännström is number 8 amongst the Canucks in outranking all the other defensemen that aren't named Filip Hronek and Quinn Hughes. All the other defensemen, he has a much higher percentage than of shots for percentage this season on 5-on-5. So that when you look at that and what Tocchet is saying, how can he be saying that he's not liking what he's seeing from it unless there's maybe something else going on, or maybe it's just over the past few games he hasn't liked what he's seen. But for him to have Mark Friedman come out, Noah Juulsen come out, where those guys haven't proven as efficient as Brännström has been, you see that jump where he ranks amongst other defenders that aren't the top 2 guys. It's pretty night and day, and he's lighting up the red light where he's getting goals scored in key moments as well. He's been one of those guys this season that has been one of the bright spots of this defensive pairing. We know Filip Hronek is the number 2 guy, but over the course of this season, it's really been Erik Brännström who has emerged as our second best defenseman this season, and it does kind of surprise me that he has been a healthy scratch for these past few games. I personally would love to see him get back in there a lot more, just because he can provide a spark to this defense and the offense when it needs to happen, whether he's laying a hit or getting a goal with a surprise one-timer slap shot, or just rifling one through traffic that just finds a way to the back of the net. But what do you guys think down below? What do you guys think about Brännström being scratched, and what do you think about Tocchet's comments on it? Do you agree with it, or do you think that Tocchet is kind of seeing something that we're not seeing, something that we're seeing, or he's seeing something that we're not? We'd love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments, but that's going to bring us into our final topic of the day, which is comment of the day. And we see here from Casket Brain 7697 saying, I thought Desharnais was going to replace Big Z or Ian Cole. So far that hasn't happened. So if they can get something for Desharnais, I am all good with it. Definitely agree with what that first statement says. Yeah, it was going to be a big replacement for Big Z. They tried to get that with Desharnais with the size that he has, but it just hasn't worked out the way they've wanted to. We've heard multiple reports come out over the past few days. We covered it in our last video as well, that it just hasn't been the right fit for Desharnais in Vancouver. So there's likely going to be we're likely going to see him get traded out of Vancouver at some point. It's just that a hefty contract for a team to take on for a guy like Desharnais, but maybe he gets a fresh start with a new team and does very well with them. Just hopefully that team does not come back to bite the Canucks in the butt. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. Let us know what you guys think down in the comments below. Love to hear what you guys think. But I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.